Welcome everyone to the fourth in our webinar series for women-owned businesses based in the Middle East and North Africa. My name is Patricia Langen. I'm with WEConnect International. And today we're joined by incredibly experienced professionals from UPS to talk about how to do business with UPS. We are recording this session so that we can upload it to YouTube and more women-owned businesses can benefit. Today, we are going to introduce our amazing presenters. And I am going to give you a short introduction to WEConnect International because we are new in the Middle East region. Although we operate everywhere else in the world. And then we're going to pass it off to Latasha Griffin, who is the Supplier Diversity Manager working globally for UPS. She's going to talk about how to do business with UPS. We'll have questions and discussion. We'll talk about key takeaways and what you can do, and then we'll close. Let me just ask that you stay on mute and chat your questions or comments in. We'll be looking at those. And we have Daria, who is our WEConnect International intern. We'll be checking the questions and making sure that they're all answered by the end of the hour. We are going to stay on the line after an hour in case any of you want to do some informal networking. It's up to you. But we will keep the Zoom link open and Daria and I will be there. I am Patricia Langen. I am the Regional Director for the Middle East at WEConnect International. And I've been here for 2.5 years. And in that time, I've seen incredible growth in what we're doing. Very excited to lead our efforts with our very committed partners, UPS, Accenture, and Procter & Gamble in starting us up in the Middle East. I'm going to just quickly talk to you a bit about WEConnect International, why we exist, and how we can help you. We truly believe that women are at the center of global business, and the data really backs us up on that. At least 1/3 of all businesses in the world are owned by women. And we've seen through various different types of research that if men and women were able to contribute equally to the economy, both in terms of being employees and business owners, that global GDP would rise incredibly by at least $28 trillion. And the other really encouraging statistic is that businesses with at least one female founder are 63% more likely to be successful than businesses with only male founders, okay? Now, there's some other interesting statistics. First of all, women control 85% of all the consumer spending in the world. But then there's a statistic that's been a bit of a challenge, and it's one of the reasons that WEConnect International exists and why organizations like UPS have joined us as member buyers and are committed to supplier diversity. Today, less than 1% of all the procurement spend by governments and by corporations is spent on women-owned businesses. So we need to do a better job of helping women-owned businesses access markets and get into global supply chains. And that's why we exist. We were started 12 years ago by companies like UPS who wanted to identify and buy more from women-owned businesses. So our mission is to drive money into the hands of women-owned businesses by enabling them to compete in the global marketplace. And today, we not only count UPS as a member buyer, but we have 160 other corporations and multilateral institutions who are our member buyers. Everything from AB InBev and Accenture all the way to the World Bank. We are a global nonprofit that is member-led and member-governed. So everyone on our board is from an international corporation who wants to buy more from women. And we are based in Washington, DC. And we do basically 5 things. We identify, register, certify, train, and connect women-owned businesses into global supply chains and connect them to market opportunities. And today is an example of our the types of events that we run for women-owned businesses to help educate them and also connect them to global buyers. One thing I do want to note is that today's webinar is meant for your information and for you to get to know one of our member buyers, but it is not intended to be a pitch session. So please, ask us questions and comments that are relevant to the content we're talking about here. We have a database of, actually, this number is a bit outdated. We have 15,000 women-owned businesses in the database today. So that shows we're constantly growing. And that represents actually now 130 countries. We just recently added Oman and Kuwait to the list. Any of you can, and I think kind of should, register on our database. It's free to register. And when you do, you are visible to all of our 160 member buyers and also to other women-owned businesses in the world. And that's partly why we exist, is to help connect women-owned businesses. These are our 160 member buyers today. This actually is a bit outdated because in the last just 2 weeks, we've been adding more member buyers. We've grown 60% in 2 years during COVID. So when I started 2.5 years ago, we only had less than 100 member buyers, and today we have 160. So it shows you that many corporations are finding that it's not just nice to have, but it's need to have buying from women. So our definition of women-owned business is that it is at least 51% owned, as well as managed and controlled by at least one or more women. And that is the world's gold standard in terms of women ownership definition. I'm going to be sending these slides out to you, and there are links to how you can register for free on our database and be visible to buyers worldwide. And then I'm going to also ask Daria, if she wouldn't mind, to chat in the link to register as well as we go. So you can even start registering right after this webinar is over. We also certify women-owned businesses in 50 countries. Right now, that certification is available in Africa, Latin America, Europe, and Asia. By 2023, we will have it available for companies that are registered in the UAE. That certification is an independent verification for our member buyers that the company is indeed owned, managed, and controlled by women. And it is a fee for service. And we will certainly, if you register, you'll get more information about future opportunities to certify, about trainings and webinars and more events, and a lot of great resources about market access. Okay, want to show you a bit about UPS. It's this amazing, inspiring story, and then we're going to go into how to do business with UPS.
Life is a journey of individual steps.
They are yours alone.
They put you on a path that is unique,
that molds and shapes you. A path that gives you your voice,
Your artistry, your individuality, your beliefs,
your ability to do things no one else can do. We see those differences as opportunities. Opportunities worth seeking.
Opportunities worth nurturing.
opportunities worth protecting. What if all of us embrace the potential in each of us?
When we harness the power of our difference, we create lasting partnerships
that propel growth and reflect the diverse markets we serve.
Imagine how far we can go when we take that first step together.
Wasn't that inspiring about UPS's supplier diversity programs? Fantastic. I'd like to introduce Latasha Griffin, who is the supplier diversity manager at UPS. She has 14 years of experience at UPS with a breadth of experience across the company, as well as she happened to be a buyer herself for UPS in the past. She just shared with me that she absolutely loves to travel. So and she's based in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm sure she'd love to get to know any of you who live outside of Atlanta, Georgia. With that, I would love to pass it off to Latasha Griffin. I also want to acknowledge that Christina Struhler, who is the vice president regionally in the Middle East, Africa, is here as well. And she is available to answer your questions. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Just to mention, in my role, we cover 74 countries. I'm based in Dubai, but any questions you might have for the Indian subcontinent, Middle East, or Africa, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to support in any way we can. And thank you for having us, Patricia. We're really fortunate to have such an amazing partner. And we're really excited to actually get the UAE chapter up and running. And very proud to work with partners like Latasha, who are really in the forefront when it comes to diversity suppliers. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. You've been an amazing partner. Thank you, Christine. I'm so glad you could join. And with that, I'd like to pass it off to Latasha, who's going to talk to you about how to do business with UPS. And just tell me when to advance the slides, Latasha, okay?
Okay, perfect, will do. So thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of this launch. I think it's so important that we have these partnerships and we continue to, stretch how we support women around the world, because really we know that when women succeed, everyone succeeds, because women really do support the economy in amazing ways, and UPS really does get that. So again, I'm Latasha Griffin. I am the supplier diversity manager that is responsible for our international support to all of our buyers around the globe. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, thanks. And today we'll just cover kind of at a high level. I want us to look at UPS and kind of what our values are and how we, how we view our commitment to diversity. What our company looks like, so you have a better understanding of how we're organized, what our service model looks like. And I think what's important for business owners to understand is when you want to work with a large organization, what are they thinking? How are we evaluating a bid when we go to the market, so that you can have a better understanding when you're crafting a bid for a large organization, the sorts of things that we're thinking as we bid or build a bid around, going to market. Also, what are the current needs that we have around the world and then in the GCC countries? And then I'll talk a little bit about our Women Exporter program. And Christina will be happy to answer additional questions about that, because that is also a program that's close to her heart. And then we'll just open the floor for any questions that anyone in the audience may have. So we'll go to the next slide. All right, so really briefly, I want to just introduce you to our team. So we are a small but mighty team in supplier diversity. We actually have a few more people in our team, but they are more focused on kind of analytics and support and coordination, if you will. But Chris Oswald leads the strategy for our team. She's the VP of Global Supplier Diversity. She is a total rock star, has come into our group and completely turned it on its head and changed, how we approach supplier diversity from a very strategic, process-oriented perspective, and helped us really grow our strategy in a very meaningful way in the past couple of years. Melody Davidson is my colleague and partner in crime, if you will. Melody and I have different verticals that we support within the procurement function. So in the US, we have kind of very clearly three verticals. We have transportation, we have direct, and we have indirect. Melody is very firmly situated in supporting all of the US transportation, all of the US direct buyers. I also support all of the US indirect buyers, but I also support all of our buyers across all of the categories of spend internationally as well. And you can go to the next slide there. And so at a very high level, I want to introduce you to our purpose statement, which is moving our world forward by delivering what matters. UPS is one of the world's largest companies with, our 2021 revenues of $97 billion. We provide a broad range of integrated logistics solutions for our customers of more than 220 countries and territories. And focused on this purpose statement of moving our world forward by delivering what matters, our company has more than 534,000 employees worldwide, and we embrace this strategy. And it's very simply stated and powerfully executed. Customer first, people-led and innovation-driven. And UPS is committed to reducing its impact on the environment and supporting the communities we serve around the world. And we also take a very clear and unwavering stance in supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is a very strong line into kind of our next slide, which is our enterprise diversity mission statement, which also supports our commitment to diversity. You can go to the next slide, Daria, which is, here you'll see kind of our framework. We approach diversity kind of from four pillars. We have our employees, our customers, the communities that we live and work and serve, and then our suppliers. And our enterprise diversity mission statement here, UPS believes its competitive strength is achieved by cultivating a diverse population of employees and business partners. This commitment to diversity enables us to positively impact communities and attract diverse customer population. And then that will lead you, directly into our supplier diversity mission statement on the next slide. And at UPS, supplier diversity is a business strategy, that brings value to our organization. And for many years now, we've known that diverse suppliers bring incredible value to UPS, which is why supplier diversity has to be the responsibility of everyone in our procurement organization, in every business unit. And it has to be a part of the process at many levels of how we purchase goods and services. So you'll see here our supplier diversity mission statement. We provide access and equal opportunity to diverse suppliers and promote and develop these suppliers within and outside our organization. We're committed to ensuring that our supplier diversity process strengthens the small, minority, and women-owned businesses that drive economic development in the communities that we serve. And so with that, I want to give you a good understanding of our service model. You can go to the next slide. So again, we have a global presence with over 220 countries and territories that we serve, all the world's major economies and most emerging markets. So if you think about UPS, we have three major business units or segments, right? We have our US domestic service, which we lead in time-definite, guaranteed small package delivery, air and ground service to all business and residential zip codes in the US. And then when you think about international, that's our small package operations in Europe, Asia, Pacific, Canada, Latin America, and ISMEA. That consists of a wide selection of guaranteed day and time definite international shipping services, including more guaranteed time definite express options than any other carrier. And then our supply chain solutions, that consists of our freight forwarding, our truckload brokerage, logistics and distribution, UPS Capital, and many other businesses. And supply chain complexity creates like a demand for a global service offering that incorporates transportation, distribution, international trade, and brokerage services with, complementary financial and information services. So, we meet this demand by offering a broad array of supply chain services in more than 200 countries and territories. So, when you think about those business units, you have to also understand what our operating model is. So around the world, we kind of have either owned operations or various partnership models. So in our owned operations, in many countries, UPS has a physical presence where we own the facilities there. We have UPS employees in country managing, our operations around the globe. And specifically in the GCC countries, UPS has small package and supply chain solutions operations in the UAE and Bahrain. And UAE serves as the UPS headquarters for the ISMEA region, with Dubai International Airport as our regional hub in the region. So in the rest of the region, we have kind of this mix of partnership models. And so with the partnership models, we have two different sorts of models. So we have an outside growth partner, where in some countries we will have a UPS physical presence and some owned assets, but we may have a supplier relationship that does, we do everything except maybe last mile delivery. And so that really looks like the carriers that show up at your home or your business that you see on a day-to-day basis, delivering the packages to your door or your business. And they may even engage in some sales activities for UPS. And then there will be authorized service partners in some countries, and we really do rely on authorized service partners in those countries where we have those partnership models to be our presence, and they operate as UPS, and they run independently for us as UPS in those countries, and they would do like our brokerage operations, our gateway operations, sales and billing, pickup and delivery activities, kind of the whole gamut. And so understanding kind of the business units that we have in our operating model will later kind of help you to understand, as we think about what we buy, it really will lead back to kind of how we're set up in different countries, what our needs are going to be in specific countries. You can go to the next slide. So here's where I think it's really helpful for business owners to have a strong understanding of what are buyers thinking about when they're crafting a bid, when they're going to the market. I think a lot of times as a supplier, you're kind of kept at bay, right? You're kind of kept in the dark about the process. We don't want to reveal our hand too much because there's this ideal of giving away too much leverage, right? So, buyers are very, very much going to be quiet about the process. But I think it's important for women business owners, in order for you to have a level playing field, to come to the table with those barriers behind you, to really have a better look inside, kind of under the sheets, if you will, to know what are we thinking, so that as you build your bid or your RFP response, these are the sorts of elements you can be building into your bid response, into your package, so that you're already answering these questions, right, for the buyers, and they're seeing you as a stronger competitor along the way, right? So this is a representation of the 7 steps of strategic sourcing. And so as a buyer, you kind of go through these steps on any RFP, which is a request for proposal, or any RFI, which is a request for information that you build to go out to the market to look for goods or services. So at the very beginning, you're kind of in the idea phase and you're engaging your stakeholders. Here's where you're trying to get buy-in from your business unit, from all the stakeholders that are involved, and you're really trying to refine the scope of the project. And the key questions we're asking at this phase is like, what is the potential opportunity around this initiative? What's the size of the opportunity? You know, what's the initial hypothesis on strategy? What levers should we be pulling to capture value around this opportunity? How long will it take to address this? Does the project potentially need any, you know, product or service qualification? Are there potential implications for, you know, requirements? And is there business risk that we should consider, right? And then if you go to step 1, which is really analyzing that category spend. So now step 1 through 4 is really a planning phase. Here we're trying to understand in step 1, we're trying to understand the current state of the particular category that's being sourced. And some of the questions we're asking ourselves here are, you know, what is the historic spend profile for this category? You know, how strategic or transactional is this engagement for UPS? And you should be thinking about how strategic or transactional is your, you know, product or service to the customer. Are they going to buy it because it's a core part of their business and therefore maybe it's a quality buy for them? Or is it just something that they need to buy that they're going to buy on cost? And it's really just not that significant to their business, right? You should be thinking about that as you know, think about your bid package. We're also thinking, you know, how will future spend be different for this category? And, what are the pain points for the current agreement with the incumbent? And are there any key cost drivers we should be thinking about, like any unbundled cost components or, you know, total cost of ownership considerations that are beyond just price? What's the potential, you know, return on investment for this initiative? Any, you know, key operating metrics that we should be measuring to understand if this is going to be successful or not. And then as we move to the next phase, which step 2 is determining the business requirements. Again, we're still in the planning phase. You know, here we're trying to understand what is the current state, you know, this particular category still. We're thinking like, what are the current constraints, such as, you know, the contract length with the incumbent, or maybe the service model? How should we, you know, prioritize, you know, the requirements perhaps? And then so the next one is really kind of the meat. We're accessing the supplier market. We're assessing the supplier market. And for me, this is kind of where I start to get excited. I'm really helping my buyer to understand the market and develop a sourcing strategy. And here, you know, the buyer's trying to understand what are the trends in the supply market, and how should those trends influence or inform, right, the strategy, the go-to-market strategy. What political or economic or social or technology factors should be impacting the market supply that we should be paying attention to? How competitive is the market? How competitive is the market that your business is in? Do you know that? Right? As a business owner, are you thinking about how saturated your market might be, and how that might be perceived by the buyer on the other end of that bid, right? So really you should understand the competitiveness of your market and how saturated it might be, because we're thinking about that as well. And then going on to step 4, which is, you know, developing a strategy, again, still in the planning phase. We're really understanding the market and developing that sourcing strategy. And some of those key questions here are, you know, what is the long-term category strategy? What is the sourcing strategy for the current initiative? What are some of the preliminary negotiation strategies that we're gonna have, you know, once we get to that phase? And then really the thing I want to impress is that stage 1 through 4 is really where that opportunity is to bring in new suppliers to that bid environment, to really introduce new suppliers into UPS opportunities, or really any businesses opportunities. And so, our team really focuses in, the supplier diversity team really focuses in with our buyers during, kind of that 0 to 4 phase on introducing, new suppliers that can bring value and innovation and new fresh ideas to the table in those phases. Because once we've gotten past that phase, they've already started to implement and execute the strategy. So, but if you do make it past that phase, right, you still want to know what are the next steps. So step 5, would be executing the strategy. So now we're kind of in that soliciting phase. And here they're really focusing on executing a tailored approach. And some of the things that the buyers are thinking about is like, how are they going to capture supplier quotes? Like, what is that bid template going to look like? What potential suppliers meet or don't meet, the qualification requirements? What's the scope and strategy for the implementation? And how is that going to impact the business, right? Is it going to drag out the timeline, the time horizon that was originally planned for this initiative? Or is it going to, be a quick implementation? And then you go to step 6, which is developing that change management plan. Now we're kind of in that negotiation contracting phase. And here we're really kind of trying to plan for like transition and change with either a new supplier, or even if it's the incumbent that's being awarded again, there's inevitably going to be change with a new, just a new term of agreement with that supplier. So, what is that? Now we're looking at a very detailed implementation plan. We're getting into the kind of the weeds, the nuts and bolts of it. And what are the risks associated with this implementation, with this change plan, with this new contract? Are there any roadblocks that we need to, remove? And then finally, in that last stage, we're looking at the monitor, manage, and reassess. And here we're in the implementing and monitoring phase. And really the idea here is just to measure and sustain the results. And so here we are asking questions like, how are the suppliers performing against what we expected? And against like the contract terms, such as like pricing structure, the service levels, the quality, that we expected when we awarded the contract. How have the benefits been realized versus, what was planned? And if we had savings that we realized from bringing on the supplier, have they eroded? Has there been a deviation from the cost that we anticipated? What was that reason, so that we can understand that going into the next season of negotiation with either the incumbent, or understanding how that erosion can potentially occur with the next supplier if we go into when we go into that next bid process. Is there a corrective plan that we need to put in place with the supplier? How is the market changing now, so that we can be ready to evolve our strategy for the next contract cycle? And just what lessons have we learned? So really, this shouldn't even look linear. It should really kind of be a circle, because this is a feedback loop, and this kind of happens over and over again in most categories, because we're generally buying kind of the same things over and over again, unless there are new initiatives that come about because the market is ever changing, our needs are ever changing. But for the most part, a lot of the things that we buy over and over again, just perhaps, the requirements may fluctuate. So I wanted to give, everyone a good idea of what buyers are thinking as they're planning to go to market for the goods and services that they buy at the, at a high corporate level like ours. So you can go to the next slide. All right, and so when we think about kind of our current needs, so I will say that we buy a lot. We have a very large procurement organization that is quite global. Most of what we buy is centralized. So for instance, if we buy things at a very high volume, we generally buy it from a centralized position of advantage. So most of that is being purchased from the US or at a very regional high level. So for instance, many of the things that we purchase from a technology perspective, from a supply perspective, at the facility perspective, we're buying at from the US, from the buyers in the US. Some things though we buy at a very high level, but are core to our business and must be purchased locally. So for instance, transportation is our core business. We purchase transportation carrier support all over the world. And outside of the US, what that looks like is transportation providers who can provide full truckload and last mile delivery services. And our appetite for that is voracious. So if there are any women business owners on the call who are in the transportation industry and have physical assets such as trucks, sprinter vans, cargo vans, those sorts of things, you may not even be specifically doing pickup and delivery. You may be doing adjacent industry type work, such as mobility services, or you may be moving, doing moving services locally, things of that nature. You may have a business that could pivot and be a perfect partner for us locally. So there'll be some instructions on how you can connect with us in a few slides, but transportation is a perfect example of things that we buy globally and we buy them locally all over the world. And then it really kind of just depends on our service model, what we're buying and where. And so I think the best way to understand what we're buying and how you can best connect with us is to either email me directly. You'll see my email at the end. But really, the idea is WEConnect is your conduit, right? That's the benefit of being a part of this WEConnect network, is that they can connect you to people like me who can advocate. And you don't have to know the 7 steps of, strategic sourcing and our business model and, be able to navigate the intricacies of UPS, right? We can help you figure out where you and your specific business can fit in our supply chain. Or if you don't, we can tell you that as well. But people like me that are connected to WEConnect and in the network, a part of the corporate buyer network, are perfect to help you navigate and find new opportunities around the world. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, and then finally, wanted to share with you about UPS's Women Exporter Program. So this is a very exciting program that we launched a few years back on a way that we can help small women-owned businesses. So Women Exporter Program, or WEP, is a program that helps women learn how to navigate the complexities of exporting, their goods outside of their home country. And the program really is awesome because it offers expert-led workshops and webinars to demystify the complexities of the various supply chain processes. So what are freight forwarders? What are customs brokers? And what's the difference between an insurance carrier and carrier liability? I don't know, tariffs, trade regulations. These things could, confuse anyone. But this program is there to provide all sorts of training and education to help just clarify that process so that a business owner can learn how to export successfully. There's all sorts of tools and resources there to find new markets for your products. And then we've got UPSers like Christina on the call today who are working in the background with different governments to remove barriers that they find are hindering women from exporting. They're having discussions with small business owners and with policymakers around the world to figure out how to remove those barriers so that when women can participate in the global economy, we find that lifts everyone, right? And then when we can all participate in the economy, then we all have more access to opportunity. And so UPS wants to be a part of that movement in the world. And then there's all other sorts of benefits like virtual consultations with experts at UPS to help you map out and fine tune your supply chain and all sorts of things like that. So I think here you can see there's a link, ups.com/women exporter, for you to go and find more information about the program. Christine, I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add about the Women Exporter program.
No, I think you covered it well, Latasha, but just maybe highlighting what we're doing here in the region, especially in the UAE. We have a fantastic partnership with Dubai Industries and Export, where we host several women exporters and she trades MENA webinars and in-person engagements as well across the GCC. We actually launched in Saudi Arabia last year as well. We're covering India, we're covering Nigeria. So there's a lot of opportunities for women-owned business across the region to be part of it. And as Latasha mentioned, it really provides you an opportunity for networking with other women-owned businesses to learn and to exchange, but as well, what we are trying to achieve with the program is really to enable and to encourage and to empower women-owned businesses to take the leap to actually export and go global. And we as well supported UPS, these businesses, by market access opportunities. So we're looking into the businesses and identifying what would be the perfect market for that product. So these women actually get the confidence, get the understanding, get the skill set and the know-how through our UPS experts to actually become exporters to scale their product or scale their business and access new markets.
Perfect, thank you. Well, that's all I had. I think we can open up to questions if there were any. I wasn't watching the chat at all. I don't know if any questions came through, but we can open up the floor for any questions that anyone might have.
Excellent. I did have a question for you, Latasha. Explain to me a little bit more about your role in supplier diversity and how you interact with the buyers.
Yeah, sure. So that's a really good question. So we really have embedded ourselves with our buyers. So we play a support function to kind of all of the buyers in the procurement organization. So I have my portfolio of buyers that I'm aligned to. And really what I do is I am responsible for learning about each category that I am responsible for. So transportation, marketing, facility support, supplies, MRO, I mean, you name it, all the categories I'm responsible for. I really have to learn a good basis of that category so that I can understand what a qualified supplier looks like in that category. And I spend a lot of time having discussions and learning from my category leads to do that. I'm also embedded in our strategic sourcing team, which is the group that's responsible for launching the physical administrative portion of our bids that go out to market. So as opportunities come through the pipeline, I'm on weekly calls with them to talk about all of the new initiatives that roll out. I'm getting alerts as all the new initiatives come out so that I can partner with the strategic sourcing team, with my category leads, to talk about any opportunities and what the intricacies of those particular initiatives are, so that I can then go to organizations like WeConnect and look through your database, look through the relationships that I've already made with suppliers, you know, over time through, you know, all the conferences that I attend at WeConnect, all of the councils that I participate on with WeConnect and other organizations, And so now I'm able to bring value back to those suppliers so that I can say, okay, as a part of this bid for, say, merchant advisory services, I've got this, list of 5 suppliers that I think are ready and qualified and have the scope appropriate for this level of engagement. Here's who I think you should include in this sourcing opportunity. And then they will evaluate them, perhaps talk to the business unit if the business unit, wants to also have a look at the suppliers. And then, there's opportunity there, and they may be invited to participate in that sourcing event. So really, my job is to find and qualify and vet out qualified, diverse suppliers that I can bring to sourcing opportunities so that they can have an opportunity to compete. And I do that by exposure and by participating in a lot of the conferences and events such as, the symposiums and things of that nature that you all host, so that I can really meet and have an opportunity to engage with the suppliers one-to-one.
Oh, great. Thank you. That is one of the most thorough responses I've ever gotten from a supplier diversity person. That's fantastic. So thank you. Really, that's so helpful. I just learned a lot, actually. Thank you. So, and about the women exporters program, how could some of the people on the line right here get involved? Like, what's the best way?
Well, yeah, so there's a call to action really on that slide. I don't know if you can go back a slide or two to that one slide. If you will go and register, there's a link at the very bottom of that slide, ups.com/women exporters. This takes you to our landing page for that program to explain kind of the benefits. And there's a registration. You can sign up now. And there's actually a sign up for a free virtual consultation where you can talk with a UPS expert to kind of just talk through some of your challenges as a business owner that you may be experiencing, to help you find those market access resources, to help you navigate some of the tools that we have that are a part of the program, to point you to the right webinars you may need to explain some of the challenges that women experience when they try to export, or just, to go through that library of information that's in that on that website that we've created, to give you really the resources you need to figure out how to export. There's a lot of information on that website that's really, really useful. But if you just will go to that website, that's a really good start, and it'll help you get started there.
Great. And Daria is actually going to put that that URL into the chat for everyone. Perfect. I invite people to unmute themselves if they want to ask some questions. I do have another question, actually, which is that we hear over and over that our members are looking for women-owned businesses in transportation and logistics. It's not only UPS, it's not only the transportation companies that are looking for them, but it's across sectors we're hearing this. So do you have any hypotheses about why it's hard for us to find women-owned businesses in transportation and logistics, and
Absolutely.
maybe what we could be helping to do about that?
Yeah, I think when you think about transportation, it typically might feel like it's a male industry. It might feel like, as a woman, you may think, well, I don't want to sit in a truck all day. I know I don't. But you don't actually have to be a licensed driver to own a transportation company. Many transportation companies are owned by people who've never driven a truck in their life, right? You just have to have drivers who are licensed. And I think a lot of it may seem daunting to some women in that way, but the transportation industry is very, very lucrative. And it's one of the most in-demand industries right now. If you think about the boom of e-commerce, and even with, COVID concerns and everything and the supply chain happening, it's even increased since COVID, because people are at home, they're not going out, they need things delivered to them, right? So transportation is not going anywhere, even with, I think, some of the change in how transportation may occur over time, right? With some automation, I think that may take some time, but even so, transportation in itself is not going anywhere. This is an industry that is in very high demand, and women need to get into this industry, need to be a bigger part of this industry. And I think too, there may be a barrier because of the assets needed to be in this industry, right? You think about the cost of, you know, a tractor trailer, you think about the cost of a Sprinter van or a cargo van. But, you know, there are, you know, programs that we are standing up now in different parts of the world, hopefully soon to come to this, you know, region as well, where we'll start to remove some of those barriers so that women can start to participate in this very, very lucrative industry. But I think, you know, as you think about your business, you know, and opportunities to transition into other revenue streams, take a look at transportation. If you already have any sort of, you know, transportation assets that you may be using, you don't have to have a large fleet, right? We're not saying you got to have 15, 20 vehicles, right, to be a part of, you know, UPS's operations. There are opportunities for small fleets. You should definitely check us out, because there are opportunities to grow in transportation very quickly if you have operational excellence, you know, within your, you know, under your belt. So women should definitely look at transportation and be a bigger part of this industry.
And that's such a good point, is that women-owned businesses tend to perform really well in terms of operations. And so that's a fungible skill that you can transfer from maybe one type of category to another. And we shouldn't, lose sight of that. But certainly, you know, I appreciate that practical point about sometimes access to the asset is a barrier, and it might even be because of your difficulty accessing finance, etc. So, you know, I think it'd be great if we could talk more about how we can get women-owned businesses into transportation and logistics, maybe even a follow-on webinar we could do. I think there is a question here, actually. This is from Afaf in Lebanon, and she is an owner of a company making homemade Play-Doh. She's still working on a product. Can you help us in Lebanon? Afaf, I'm not sure what you were thinking about for UPS, if you know UPS, but I don't know if your question is if your question is addressed to WeConnect International. The best way we can help you is for you to register on our database, so you're visible to buyers across the world. And then you're also on our list and get invited to webinars and trainings that might be relevant for you. So for example, if you're developing this natural homemade product, which happens to be Play-Doh, you might benefit from some of our online trainings about business management, strategy, marketing, logistics, things like that. And we have, for example, we have member buyers who are definitely in the space of children and youth. We have Disney, we have other retail member buyers like Target and TJX, which, as you know, operates retail outlets in several continents. We also have Walmart, etc. And as I mentioned, Disney is a corporate member of ours. Yes. So Afaf is saying that she's interested in exporting. You might want to look at the Women Exporters Program. There might be some good trainings for you there. And Christina's answering you. That's perfect. That's wonderful. So we are coming up to the end. I hope if anyone has a final question, please chat it in. We'll try to get it answered. But I did want to move on in our next slide to remind you all to go to ups.com supplier diversity. And you can also email diversity@ups.com. And this actually is one of the main takeaways that I want to get across is that you can be in direct touch with UPS at diversity@ups.com. You can also register to be a supplier. And you can register with WeConnect International. As Latasha mentioned, UPS also relies on WeConnect International to identify women-owned businesses. So it's really important to be on our database. And you are visible not only to 160 member buyers, but also to 15,000 women-owned businesses across the world. And we try to encourage women-owned businesses to do business with each other. We'll be sending these slides out. And I also want to maybe just review a few things that Latasha mentioned, which is really the strategic sourcing has several different steps. And it is really important if you are trying to sell to a large corporation that you understand what their business is and their business model. Latasha shared with you some of the categories that they're looking for. I think you should, seriously study that. And also she explained the role of the supplier diversity staff inside the organization. They're your greatest champions. So it is good to know the way they think and what their needs are, what their pain points are as well. And Latasha, is there anything else you want to add in terms of key takeaways?
No, I would just say, remember that, most supplier diversity teams are a very small team. They are supporting a very large procurement organization. So be patient. Not every conversation you're going to have is going to end in an opportunity. But they really are working to find ways to introduce you to opportunities that exist. And most of us will let you know if there isn't an opportunity. Like I will tell you that UPS doesn't buy Play-Doh, unfortunately. But to Patricia's point, there are other great corporate buyers in the network that do buy Play-Doh, right? And so I do try to always provide those suggestions around where you should put your time and attention, right? Because your business is limited on time, just like my business is limited on time and attention as well. So I think it's a trade-off where we're always trying to give each other as much value as possible. So we will try to always be upfront and frank with you all and give you as much guidance as possible, but we are here to be your advocate inside the business. And when there's not an opportunity, also outside the business. So don't be afraid to ask if you do get in touch with a supplier diversity person at a corporation. If you don't work out with that organization, where do you think I should put my time and attention? Because we know other organizations and what they do as well. And we all talk amongst each other and can tell you, oh, hey, maybe Disney is looking for that, or maybe Target is looking for that. You should probably reach out to them, as a great lead. So
that's such a good point, Latasha. It also, a lot of women-owned businesses in our network are working on issues and products and services that are important to parents and to schools, to education. And you might actually find some buyers among the women-owned businesses as well. That's why it's always good to really flesh out your business profile and WeConnect, make sure it is thorough. You're using the right keywords that you want people to use to find you in there.
Sure.
And I do want to point out that Christina mentioned shetrades.com. You should also check that out. That's another network. I think women-owned businesses cannot be in enough networks because, that is one of the top 2 reasons that women-owned businesses, their top 2 needs actually is not only access to finance, but access to networks and markets. And so get in as many networks as you possibly can. And She Trades is primarily focusing on trade and exports. So for those interested, it's a great venue as well. And it's free, as well as WEConnect International registration is also free. With that, I just want to say thank you so much. If any of you want to get directly in touch with me at WEConnect International, here's my email. Maybe Daria, you could chat that in as well. And also, if any of you want to stay and ask me questions at the end, please feel free. This recording is going to go up on YouTube, and it's going to be available to everyone in the Middle East region. And we hope you also follow us on social media. Latasha or Christina, any final words?
Thank you so much for having UPS and inviting us to be a part of this launch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daria and Christina.